Joining me this morning for the Political Power Panel, Jen Psaki, former White House Deputy Communications Director for President Obama, Amanda Terkel, Senior Political Reporter and Managing Political Editor for the Huffington Post, and MSNBC contributor Robert Traynham, who's also the former Communications Director for Senator Rick Santorum and former Communications Advisor to the Bush-Cheney 2004 campaign. All right, guys, so after all those big intros, Amanda, I want to start with you. Is the question today not whether Mitt Romney wins, but how he wins and the nature of that victory?
Well, I would be shocked if Mitt Romney doesn't sweep the states today. But it's interesting that tonight he will be giving a speech not in any of those 5 states, but in New Hampshire, where he's expected to sort of try to kick off the general election, say, moving beyond the primary now that Rick Santorum has dropped out. Newt Gingrich really isn't doing much. He's more than $4 million in debt. And so he is turning his eyes toward the ultimate prize, which is in November, in defeating Barack Obama.
All right, so as we take a look at a poll from New Hampshire, let's take a peek at those numbers as you talk about that, Amanda. We can show everybody exactly how people are faring right now in the thought with Barack Obama against Mitt Romney, with President Obama leading 51%. Robert, I want to lead on to you because, as Amanda points out, not in any real, or is moving on basically, not doing any work in the states that are voting today. That work is already done. Delivering this speech in New Hampshire titled "A Better America Begins Tomorrow," and a new WMUR poll, as we just showed you there, shows the president leading in New Hampshire. So with all this coming together, is it signaling a bad start for Romney when he's not leading in that neighboring state to Massachusetts?
Well, I'm not too sure about that, Thomas. I mean, let's remember, the election is still roughly about 4 to 5 months away. Governor Romney still has a lot of ground to make up, particularly with Latinos and with women. And the question becomes, quite frankly, is whether or not this race will tighten after Labor Day. And I have every sneaky suspicion that it will. And 2 main reasons why. Number one, the economy is still the #1 driving issue on voters' minds, regardless of whether it's New Hampshire or not. And secondly, with all due respect to New Hampshire is not going to decide who our next president is going to be. It really is going to be those battleground states of Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, Michigan, and even to a certain degree Colorado, and maybe even Virginia. So that's where we really need to take a look at this, and that's where we really need to focus whether or not the Romney campaign is going to be able to make up ground with those 2 key constituencies that I mentioned, women and Hispanics, and I think he will.
All right, you bring up women, you bring up Hispanics, so now the main imagery, Jen, is Mitt Romney stumping with Marco Rubio, the Florida senator. We see him yesterday in Pennsylvania. Funny thing is, when he was asked about Rubio and his experience, is he, got enough to be the vice president? Here's how he answered.
I don't think I have any comments on qualifications for individuals to serve in various positions in government at this stage. That's something that we're going to be considering down the road as we consider various potential vice presidential nominees.
Marco Rubio stepped up, said he's not going to talk about it any further than he already had before. So, Jen, the Rubio politician himself, is he the dynamic, charismatic running mate that Romney needs, or is he potentially a soft target like a Sarah Palin and doesn't have the experience necessary for the job that people would say that he needs?
Well, Thomas, as you touched on, every 4 years we have this dramatic flirtation with all of the vice presidential contenders. How did they look at each other? How did they interact? Even though the American people, history shows, care most about what people stand for at the top of the ticket. But if you delve deeper into Marco Rubio's record and his recent statements, what you'll find is he's been a champion of the Alternative to the Dream Act, which the New York Times said is the Dream Act without the dream. He recently said that George W. Bush was a fantastic president, and polls have shown that he might even actually hurt Mitt Romney in Florida. So we've got a while to go. We all know we're going to be following this closely and talking about it for the upcoming months, but there are a few interesting facts when you delve a little bit deeper in.
It is a big parlor game. People like to try and pick this out, who's going to be number 2. Robert, President Obama expected to clinch his party's nod today. The president's re-election and the super PAC that's supporting him are both poised to start airing these new TV ads today in 3 swing states. So is this the first big move, the big major move in stepping up the efforts to compete with the GOP super PACs and the ad war that's taking place in this country?
Yes, there's no question about it, Thomas. This is the Obama and the Democrats' way of testing the waters, if you will. Number one, they're testing the waters to see what message is going to resonate with the American people. They're also testing, quite frankly, their organizational skills in terms of executing this type of big campaign buy. This is kind of the things that it's almost like exercising, if you will, and warming up for the big day. There's no question about it that the super PACs on the Republican side are much better organized, much better funded than on the Democratic side. So this is the president's reelection team's way of literally testing the waters to see what works and what doesn't work.
All right, so the president is going to be in North Carolina today talking about student loans. You know, both sides are trying to get them while they're young, and they're going to talk about money. And the fact of the matter is, you know, student loans are out of control in this country, as well as the cost of college tuition. However, the Republican Navy released this ad ahead of the president's arrival. Take a peek at this.
Critical time, a critical election for this state. The Democratic Party's executive director, Jay Parmley, resigned because of a growing rumor that he'd harassed a co-worker and that the party had covered it up.
All right, so the GOP clearly depicting the president trying to paint him as a commander-in-chief, not effectively controlling his own party and tying scandals to him. So can Republicans successfully put a president, Jen, who's known for offensive moves on the defense instead?
Well, look, Thomas, I think this strikes me as grasping at straws a bit. I think what the people of North Carolina care about is how they're going to be able to afford to send their kids to college, how we're going to take care of military families, which is also an issue the president has spoken about repeatedly in North Carolina. And I don't think that anyone there is sitting at their kitchen table talking about the state party director. They want to know what he's going to do to help middle-class families prosper and flourish.
Jen Psaki, Terkel, Robert Traynham, great to see all three of you today.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
All right.